getting 50 bodies. But
Okay.
nonetheless, they're kind of then saying, well, we're high value, therefore we'll get, as you were pointing out, the ones who are less tainted. And meanwhile,
Mhm.
the ones with 50 bodies, you go to the weak dudes. I mean, if you look at it in a hierarchical manner, that's kind of what they're doing.
Well, see, here, to
Well,
answer
that's what they're
Sarah's
claiming
question,
that they're doing.
Well, no, I know, yeah.
to answer Sarah's question, you said why aren't women, the good men? The women will come to the good men, and my answer is that no, they wouldn't. They won't, because see, there's a difference. I have three categories for guys. I got the bad boys, good guys, and then the nice guys. Okay. The bad boys they have a, what I would say is that they operate more from an evil patriarchy. They're about self. They're like, I'm going to use these women for whatever I want to use them for, and discard them when I'm done. Right? Those are the selfish guys that really don't care about your feelings as a woman, and they really don't plan on sticking around very long. They just want to get what they can, dip out. But they operate from a very patriarchal position. They operate from, I lead, you follow me. You're a woman, you need to act like a woman. Like, so they have this patriarchal structure, right? When a woman experiences bad patriarchy and they get burned by it, they get turned off by all patriarchy. So what women tend to do is that they'll go for the bad boys and they'll experience evil patriarchy, and then they will reject all patriarchy, and they want something safe, they want something nice, so they run to the safe guy. The safe guy is the guy that pedestalizes you, that's like, oh, happy wife, happy life, that oh, that you could do no wrong, that I just want to serve you, those are those guys. And women will they will go to that guy because that guy's safe. That guy's not going to do anything that like the evil patriarchal guy did. No, you get to run the show. You're the boss lady. You're the queen. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're elevated, he's beneath you. And that is safe for women. Women prefer that because there's no judgment, there's no consequences, there is no anything, no accountability whatsoever in that, with that guy. But the good guy still represents patriarchy, but he represents a good patriarchy. See, a good patriarchy is not necessarily selfish. A good patriarchy is like, how do I, one, lead the people underneath me properly, accordingly, and help them grow and help them be where they ought to be. A good patriarchy is still man-led, it's still father-led, but it's not led in a way for his own selfish gain, but it's for the gain of the family, gain for the unit, gain for the community. So there's a difference. But when it comes with women first initially seeing that this good guy represents a patriarchy, she's automatically turned off because of her bad experiences with the guy that represented an evil patriarchy. She can't tell the difference at first.
Maybe. I mean, to me, it's just like, if you're a douchebag, to me, you're just a douchebag. I don't care what you represent, what you don't represent. If you essentially treat women or men or children or elders like crap, I'm going to think less of you initially, anyways. And if you only view, like, if your primary focus is just to go out and get laid, or if you just don't have the human element to caring about people as a person, just basic humanity, then of course I'm going to think less of you again. But I mean, that to me, I don't even think that's a patriarchy. I think that's
Well,
just
the thing is, like, when you look at like some of the things that they want, right? Both patriarchies will say that men are supposed to lead, right? That women and men are not equal, right? So these are the major talking points that women will be able to differentiate between patriarchy and non-patriarchal guys, right? So when you hear a guy say like, no, women, like, we're not equal.
Oh, did he freeze? Okay. It wasn't just me. I thought it was just me.
What happened?
Oh, you froze. You're back.
I'm back. All right.
You got that government internet, Glenn.
Man, I got them feds on me.
You started preaching.
I got them feds. No, it's like there's a difference between a guy that's patriarchal and non-patriarchal. And when women see these traits that are patriarchal, they just kind of get turned off because of that experience of bad patriarchy.
How would, okay, define the patriarchal experience? Like, how are they viewing these men? You know, what would, if I were a female, you know, and I just bumped into a man, what about him would make me think like, oh, this is a patriarchal experience that I've experienced before that was bad, and now I don't like you?
Okay, for example, like if a guy tells you, you know, you're not supposed to wear certain clothes, don't wear that out. Like if you're with him, you're dating him, he's like, I don't want my woman dressing this way going out. Yeah. The other night you had Torsia on here.
Mhm.
And Torsia, you guys had that whole debacle, right? And
Debacle.
my thing was, it would be simple as this: like, before we get into a relationship, before we have established a committed relationship, I would have already put my boundaries down. Let you know, like, hey, you know, I don't like women that dress promiscuous, going out to nightclubs. You know, like, to me, that's not appropriate.
Right.
I don't like women that post very provocative pictures on social media. You know, the way I look at it is, if you and I are dating and the day you decide that you wanted to post some provocative picture on Instagram or something is the day that you're telling me, without telling me, that you want to be single and we're no longer in a relationship. And see, all this is established well beforehand. So as I'm telling you, I'm not trying to control you. You could do whatever you want to do.
Well, those are your
But
boundaries.
but if you just decide to do this, well, then we are no longer a thing. And that's fine. I want you to do what you want to do. But at the same time, that doesn't mean I'm going to be okay with it. Right? So,
Right. And I don't think that anybody should be forced to be okay with that anyway. So if you and I,
that would be considered a very patriarchal position, where a guy's saying, like,
I don't
do
think
not
that
want
is.
my
I think
woman
that's
to
a
dress
standard
like this.
boundary. I think that's, you know, like, to me, I wouldn't date a man who wore his jeans down around his ass. Like the pants will be pulled up. And if you know, that, and I prefer a belt, you know, like, not a belt on me, a belt on, you know, around his pants. Like, that's a preferred method. I think, you know, dressing clean and dressing
But see, the
respectable.
difference is the dressing is a signal. So when a woman dresses promiscuous going out with her friends, she's signaling in a way that she might be available. Whether or not she's available in a relationship or not, it's not what it's intended, it's what's perceived. So the men will perceive her as available. If you see a guy walking around with his pants halfway down his ass, even men will look at him and be like, okay, he's either gay and he just got out of prison and he's, you know, soliciting his butthole, or the guy doesn't know how to properly dress. You know, like he's wearing his big brother's clothes or something. You know, it's like
I view it as like, it's a less respectable stance for a man, you know.
I agree with you.
And I wouldn't want to be
different.
caught like out on a date with a man who can't wear, you know, doesn't know how to pull his pants up. To me, that just signifies that I'm trashy because the man that I'm with is trashy.
Well, of course, you want to compliment the guy that you're with, and if
Mhm.
you actually, if he doesn't compliment you, in that
Then this
presentation,
doesn't work.
it doesn't work, right? But what I'm
Right.
getting at, a woman dressing promiscuous outside of the home, right, does
Mhm.
draw attention in the way that she is soliciting herself, whether or not she believes it or not.
Mhm.
It's the perception is that she is soliciting herself. Guys wouldn't be open to approaching her, right?
Now, is she with her man when she's dressing provocatively, or is she
Let's
with
just
her
say-
friend?
Let's say she's with her friends.
Okay. Well, I think if you're with your friends, I think you should be mindful of that. You know, especially if you're okay. Here's how I look at it. In a relationship, I don't get to go out with my friends a whole lot. Why? Because I don't care to go out without my man, right? So
That's better. That's what it's
ideally,
supposed to be.
you know, ideally I would be going with him anyways. There are those few little tidbits in between of like, oh, let's meet up for dinner and a drink, you know, and it's your, you know, but I mean, I'm far beyond nightclubs and stuff like that too. So that's not even a thing for me anymore. But I don't know. There might be other women who think differently, you know, to that, who might do
Well, I
different
think
things.
it's like, even in like, there's certain, like, for example, there's certain bikinis or bathing suits that I think are just inappropriate for a woman that's in a relationship to wear, period. You know, like if you're wearing a micro bikini and it's barely covering the areola of your nipple, right? I really don't think that's appropriate for a woman to wear. I get it. You don't want tan lines. Fine.
Yeah.
You could
Yeah.
go to a tanning salon, or you could have your own,
Well, there's like
tanning at home.
yeah, there's like lotions and stuff you can use too to subdue that. But
Exactly. But
yeah,
if I was with a woman and she's like, "Oh, you're insecure because you don't want me to wear this bathing suit," no, it's not insecure. I just don't want to walk around with somebody that looks like a prostitute.
I could understand that one. Definitely understand, because to me it feels like too naked. I'm more of like the sporty bikini type of girl, but that's because I don't feel comfortable wearing like even the extra cheeky bikini bottoms. Like I
Can I
never
ask a
felt
question?
comfortable wearing that. Yeah, what's up? Go ahead, Leroy. It's up to you.
What if your man said no to the extra sporty bikini? What would you do in that situation?
He said one piece or nothing.
I mean, is he like butthurt over
No, he
like a
says no.
sporty-
He says no. He
sporty
says it's not
bikini?
happening. He just says no. Doesn't matter his emotional state. He just says no.
I think here's what I would do. I would say, does this bother you? You know, if we're out in public, you know, I would get to understand it. And if it really, really actually bothered him, then I'd probably be okay with like one of those one pieces, or maybe like the half back pieces, you know, where it's like circular, like open in the back or something like that. Like I'd be open to it.
What if he
I
wasn't
wouldn't-
bothered by it? He just said no, not today. I'm not feeling that one today.
I mean, that's just the same as if I, you know, put a muumuu on and started walking around the house and he said, I'm not feeling it. I'm going to go change, right?
Yeah, so that's what I'm asking.
I think it goes both ways. Yeah, I
regardless of how he feels about it.
I mean, and here's why. Because if we were going to dinner and he comes down the stairs and we're getting ready to leave and he's dressed in sweatpants and I'm like, hey, we're going to a nice dinner tonight with my parents. I'd like you to dress up. He's probably, out of respect, he's going to be like, oh, I didn't realize, or oh, I just wasn't feeling it. I think he would go upstairs and put some nice khakis on and a polo.
What if he said no?
We're not going to dinner with my parents at a nice restaurant then. I'm not showing up with sweatpants. Like I'm, you know, just the same as I'm not dating a guy with his jeans around his ass either. Like, I think that's a reasonable request to say, hey, like, I'm representing you, you know, like, but that piece goes both ways too. We're not you wouldn't even be able to get into the nice restaurant anyways.
Yeah, but I said a hypothetical then. So you're saying there's limits to your submission.
Yeah, and that's what this is very interesting that he's pointing out here.
Okay.
And this is where like I come with the Bible. So the Bible is very clear, right? Once you get in a relationship, once you're married, this marriage, because they only talk about husband and wife, they don't talk about boyfriend and girlfriend. All right? This only applies to committed relationships, right? It says, you know, in Ephesians 5, it says, wives, submit to your husbands in everything as the church submits to Christ. It doesn't say submit to your husbands when you are happy with him. Submit to your husbands when you feel like it. Submit to your husbands when people are around. It says in everything. The flip that, it also tells husbands to love your wives as Christ loved the church. You know, love your wives like you are willing to die for you, like die for her. Like you have to be like you be willing to lay down your life for her, right? In that manner. But also you're to wash her with the word, which is teach her the scriptures, right? And to purify her, to edify her, so she appears to be blemish without wrinkle or spot, right? But then it also tells wives, or reminds wives in the end, to respect your husbands. So I want to point something out here, that women in relationships, once you're married, you are to respect and submit to your husbands, and your husbands are to love you unconditionally, in a sense, right? These are two really almost like extreme things that as humans we don't do very well. One, I don't think we understand what love is in that manner. Two, everything that we do is conditional, right? If your man's being disrespectful to you, or you think that he's being disrespectful to you, all of a sudden that submission stuff that you're doing really well at, goes out the door. You're like, fuck this dude. Like,
yeah,
you
but
know,
he shall honor thy father and thy mother, and we're not showing up at dinner with sweatpants on, right?
that's not his father and mother. That's yours.
But no, according to the Bible, it would still be connected, right?
No,
So-
the families are integrated, but that's not his father and mother. But
I think out
Sarah-
of respect. I think
but
it
yes,
would
out
go-
of respect, he would.
I think
common
out of
sense, a
respect,
dude
he
would not go
would.
to. I don't know what guy goes to sweatpants. To
I
a
don't know what
restaurant.
guy would
But,
either
you
way,
know,
but that
Let's
was
say he's
just
wearing
an
a
example
t-shirt
we
that
were
says,
using.
like, I love hot milfs. Okay, that you know, under a blazer, like that's probably a little bit more realistic. And I'll be like, hey, bro, go change your shirt. But I don't even
Yeah.
know a guy that would do that either.
I
One
don't know
point
any that
that-
would, but you know, that was the whatever. I forget how we
Yeah.
got onto that example, but you know,
But see, what he's pointing out, what Leroy was
Mhm.
pointing out was that today women tend to, their submission and their respect comes with condition. Even this is not just non-Christian women. This is Christian women too. You know, that that they're taught that the submission and respect is conditional. But they still hold men's love for their wives to be unconditional. So it's like women are allowed to have these conditions and will obey this or behave this way when the conditions suit them. But men, how dare you have these? How dare you try to be conditional? You have to do this unconditionally.
Mhm.
And that tends to be the problem altogether. One, because neither party is obeying what God says. And that's kind of leads to, well, where did this come from? Well, feminism has infiltrated the church. You got Unplugged or Christianity Unplugged in here. He's written one book that's been really good. You can catch it on Amazon that talks about how feminism has infiltrated the church. But he also has a second book that he's coming out with, and he goes a little deeper and a little bit more into the history of it. And it's really interesting. It's fascinating. And it kind of shows you where things have changed and why we have gotten to the place that we gotten to now. I personally blame the church for the rise of feminism and the rise of red pill. Personally, I think if the church was leading the culture the way that it ought to, and if they were holding both men and women accountable as they ought to, we wouldn't see red pill or feminism because things would be led correctly.
I think he's right.
I mean, I agree with the concept here. I do think that a simple conversation about something is not going to hurt it, right? You know, if I walked out in a bikini and he said not today, then I'd simply say, like, what's up? Is everything okay? What's going on? You know, especially if he has allowed me to wear it before. You know, then I would want to know what's
Why
up.
does it matter?
I don't know. Why does anything matter?
I got
we
a
don't
question
have-
If he said a
regarding all
reason,
this.
if he said a reason that you disagreed with, well, what? That's why I'm saying,
Well,
what does it matter?
It's not
What's
about
the- is it-
it's not about disagreeing. It's just I like to understand things, right? Just like children always say, why, mommy, why? You know, and sometimes they just need to understand it. It's not that they're going to disagree with you or say, no, I don't want to. It's just a matter of saying, oh, what's up today? What's going on? You know, and that's part of being a communicative spouse and understanding your spouse and what's going on with them and why they're feeling a certain way. Or because then if he says, well, you know, some of my friends are showing up and I don't like the way they look at you. And it's this, you know, friend, John, Matt, and Jimmy, you know, and I don't like the way they look at you. So I prefer you to wear, you know, a whole piece or something to cover up. Then the next time we go to hang out with John, Matt, and Jimmy, I'm already not going to put that outfit on, and I'm going to ensure that when we are around those friends that I'm fully covered, and I'm ensuring that, you know, things aren't going to be happening with that. So it's more of a matter of understanding so that I can predict further, you know, what my husband would anticipate and what he would expect and what he would want in that scenario. So
See,
it's
I
not
do
about
believe that-
disagreeing.
I do believe that men, you know, if I tell my woman, like, hey, you know what, you're not going to wear that. That's not tonight. That outfit, not tonight. You know, and she goes, oh, why? To me, that's not offensive. She
Mhm.
wants clarification. She wants to understand,
Exactly.
okay, she's worn this before and we've gone out and it was appropriate. I didn't say anything then. and she's wearing it now. She wants to know what's the difference of venue, or why tonight this is not as appropriate as it was the other night. I don't think that's a problem. I don't think that's necessarily challenging your authority or challenging positioning. It's asking for clarification onto how is she supposed to differentiate when is this shirt appropriate or when it's not appropriate. And I think as a good leader, that's as what you should ought to do that. Be like, hey, you know what? Don't wear that shirt tonight. Tonight we're going to be working. We're going to go out to dinner with the guys that I work with or my business partners, and I don't want them to, be distracted or have any impression on who you are that is not, appropriate. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is not the setting or the venue for this type of thing. Now, if we're going out to the club and listening to some music and, we're going to meet up with some friends, maybe that outfit's a little bit more appropriate. It's more casual and it's not a big deal. But maybe in a business setting or who we're meeting with, it is a big deal, right? There's a difference.
Venue is key, and people are key.
I think that communicating that is important. I think that this is so. Let me ask you this. So I think that men ought to lead their home, right? I think men should lead the church, and I think men should lead our government.
I don't disagree.
Now, that means no women in office, no women politicians, and this is where a lot of people get upset with me. They're like, "Well, wait a minute, we're equal. We're both equal. We're equal. So you're saying that men cannot or women cannot have a say?"
I'm not saying they should or shouldn't, but I also don't follow it enough to care to give my opinion on whether they should or should. And I'm going to just take your word on it and trust you.
Yeah, no, my thing is, I just think that men should lead the 3 spheres of society.
I'm going to presume that you've watched this enough or you've studied this enough that if you say that women don't belong in politics, then fine, I'll take your word on it. And I don't have anything outside of that to back it up. If I could have my way, I'd be a stay-at-home mom eating bonbons all day, not having to worry about working or, anything like that. So fine, I'll take your word on it. I have no disagreement.
I don't think that should be held to like a dictatorship standard. I do think that men probably are going to handle leadership roles a lot better than women, just because women are more emotional beings in general. I don't really think that we would handle very well a female president. I hear some snickering.
I saw you nearly crying earlier, and then you claimed that other people are emotional.
It's the kettle in the pot black. But look, sir, I got to bring one thing back. Would you now what you and Glenn were talking about regarding changing attire? So I got a question for you, a genuine one, without like digging deep. If you think back to different men that you've dated, do you think that the effect would be different of one versus the other based on your respect for that man, for those men? Do you see what I'm getting at? That, for instance, if Godzilla told, if Torsia actually was going to go on a date with him and he's like, hey, do you think you could wear something more conservative? She would tell him to fuck off. There would be no respect based on the interaction we saw. So what I'm getting at is, do you think that, in your opinion, respect that you have for the man, meaning if you see him as, this is the man that I want, inevitably, Godzilla, don't worry, I don't even dislike you. I just have to point out what is.
Well, you can't stop pointing it out.
I think we could have got to the question without the insults to poor Godzilla.
I know, exactly.
He needs to harden up. I'm helping him.
Here's what I'll say, Based, is that I don't think I've ever been with a man that's ever told me I can't wear something. And I also, with that being said, I don't think I've walked out the door looking like a whore either. So I think it's kind of twofold. I've been respectable enough. So if I was going out with my man to dinner with his parents, I'm not going to walk out with my tits hanging out. But also, if we're going to the beach, again, I wear very sporty style bikinis. So I don't have those tiny little things. And I don't think I've ever been in a position.
Yeah, I get what you mean. You're saying that you're conservative and it wouldn't need to happen. I'm just asking if it did happen for that example, if it would depend somewhat on how you viewed that man, or you're just saying overall for any man that I date, it would be the same. That's what I'm trying to get to.
I think you can predict my response based off of what I'm already telling you. If I have enough respect to walk out the door looking reasonable And if I have enough respect to know what to wear with his parents, if I have enough respect to know what to wear to the beach, then don't you think that I would have enough respect that if he asked me to change, I probably would, no matter what the man was, because I think the majority of those men I respected.
Right. No, I get what you're saying, that it wouldn't need to happen. You already respect yourself enough not to do that. But to Glenn's point, he was saying, well, what if you're wearing this, not outrageous by any means bathing suit, but he says to you or whoever, I need you to go change that. And you're kind of in your head like, well, this shouldn't be a problem. Like this isn't.
Yeah,
anything.
I don't think it would be a problem. I would want to know why, because I'm a curious little kitten, right? I don't just like to be given like like the worldview of don't do this, and I'm like, but why? I don't understand. I like to understand things, but I don't think I would be disagreeable to that. To me, it doesn't feel like an issue. I don't feel. It also depends on the relationship, right? Is this our
That's what I'm
second
getting
date?
at.
If this is our second date, like I don't know who you are. I have no faith in you yet. I don't know your level of competency. Like,
Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I don't know you. Have we been together for 6 months? Yeah, I'm probably gonna just take your word on it and go do what I need to do.
All right. Fair enough.
See, I think that's the interesting point here is that one, a lot of guys think that as soon as the woman shows somewhat interest in them, like she's interested in going on a date with them, that level of interest automatically grants them the authority to be like, go change your outfit. I don't like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's something I think it's you present it. The way that you present it is important. Like if you come off as like an authoritarian, like I don't think that guys should always have control. See, there's a difference between being in control and controlling. And I think there's a huge difference in there that guys do not see the differentiate, between the two. Being in control means I'm in control of my world, what I allow in and out of my life, who I allow in and out of my life. I can't control people. I can't control, anything but myself. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to control anybody. I'm just trying to control what is going to be in my life because that's what all I can control.
Yeah, your circle.
Exactly. So guys tend to be like domineering and dictating when it comes to their women. Like you can't wear thong underwear.
Well,
you wear thong underwear, then that means you're trying to be a slut.
Can I ask you this? Should he be in control of her or should he just be leading her?
It's not control. It's leading, but leading in a manner that suits his boundaries, right? Because this is what he accepts and this is what he wants in his life. He doesn't want anything outside of these boundaries. Now, if she doesn't like that and she wants to operate outside of his boundaries, then he needs to respect that and let her know, like, hey, I appreciate you. I enjoy your time, but the way that you operate is outside of my boundaries. That's not what I want in my life.
Right.
And I think you are better suited for somebody else then. If this is what you want to behave in, or this is the type of behavior that you desire or you enjoy, that doesn't work for me. And there's nothing.
Well, and would a guy end up with a girl who would wear scandalous clothing anyways if he didn't allow that kind of style in his life to begin with?
He would if he's desperate.
Yeah, I would say most men tend to be like they tend to placate to women at first, and then once they got the woman interested or committed, then they try to start cracking down or start placing these boundaries in there.
That sounds like a personal problem. Boundaries start right off the bat. Just like I would have a boundary to say like no drugs, no jail, no married men, right?
Yeah.
And if you show up with any of those three, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, we're going to go on a few, dates for the next, 3 months, and then all of a sudden they drop it on you and be like, oh, by the way, I don't allow for any of those in my life, and I think you need to change that.
I think there's a difference is like, because I agree with you, those are kind of like probably disqualifiers from the beginning, right? So you wouldn't even entertain a guy like that. But see, most guys, they'll be like, oh, you know what? She checks like, 3 out of the 5 boxes. Maybe these other 2, are a little bit more like maybe she's dressing very promiscuous, right? And he's like, I'll work with that because he's desperate. He's like,
Then that's desperate. He shouldn't be going after her anyway.
Exactly. But see, most men today are not equipped enough to, or they will not stand on their convictions enough to stay single, to stay lonely. In that case, they'll be like, oh, I'll give in a little bit here, and then once we're in a relationship, then I will persuade her, or I will get her to
Okay, so this is part of like what people believe to be compromising, right? And I think that people confuse compromising values and principles with whether we're going to have Mexican or Chinese food tonight for dinner, right? I would compromise, Glenn, if you and we were trying to go out on a date tonight and you just had a hankering for Mexican food tonight. And I'm like, no, I really want Chinese. One of us has to compromise, right? But nobody's getting hurt by that. Okay. But if we're compromising values and principles, being the way somebody dresses or presents themselves or carries themselves in public,
when you've already admitted that you
have a problem with it.
You have a problem with it, and you were desperate, so you already lowered your standards.
Yeah,
right.
Out of being desperate to be with this person.
Exactly. And I think that that's a piece of, if somebody's willing to lower their values, standards, or principles or boundaries just for purposes of getting a first date, second date, 10th date, and then all of a sudden they want to whip out these random boundaries, on the fly and be like, oh, by the way, if we're going to continue this, like you have to change all of these things about you.
See,
it's incongruent.
This is the problem that I see. This from complaints of women. This is the problem that I see with a lot of men. Is that a lot of men tend to be like all cool with everything at first. Everything's hunky-dory, like there's no complaints. And then slowly but surely, they're like, you know what? I don't like you going out with your friends dressed like that. Right. It's like, you need to change. And the woman's like, well, wait a minute, where is this coming from? But she's like, okay, whatever, cool. And then it goes to, I don't really like you going out with your friends, period. Like, why do you need to go out with them all the time? Like, why are you going out on Thirsty Thursdays, with your colleagues from work? I don't appreciate that. To me, that's this. Now it's like this constant change. He's slowly, but surely dropping these things, or he's opening himself, or letting you know about the things that he doesn't like, when he should just already have those boundaries in place and use those to vet her from the beginning.
From the get-go, absolutely.
Exactly. But see, a lot of guys are afraid of, well, let's face it, a lot of guys don't have the options that women have.
Like you said, because it's out of desperation.
Yes, it's out of desperation. And that's
where they come off dishonest. That's where they come off dishonest, and they start appearing to be controlling.
Because it is dishonest.
It is dishonest.
Controlling.
They're being dishonest to themselves of what
they're being dishonest to both parties, right? They're placating to them to get the girl in there, and then he got her in there, and now it's like trying to lock her down the way that he wants her to be.
That's just the same as a woman who thinks she can change a man, and make him better. If he's a fixer-upper, like, oh, I can fix him, it's okay,
and turn a hoe into a housewife.
Yeah, you can't. I 100% agree with that. But I think that, I don't think there's any problem with having boundaries and standards, even for the way you want your woman to dress or the way a woman wants their man to dress. I think it's all respectable. I think it's a fair game. I think it's an easy boundary to set. And, if you're not saying those things up front, and if you're enjoying and you are attracted to her because she dressed like that from the get-go, that sits on your shoulders, not hers. And you can't be mad at her if she says, what do you mean you want me to change? I've been wearing this dress. This is the 4th time I've worn this dress, and I think that that's where the miscommunication and all the issues, especially like in the red pill talking points on that piece, that's where that.
What have you heard about the red pill talking points on that piece?
For a man being like in control, right? Or as I say, like leading her, right? But your concept was like, what if he told her this? What if he told her that? Right? And she particularly should be listening to what he says, but you can't change the dynamics of the relationship 6 months into it just because you suddenly remembered you had boundaries and standards.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. It's almost very similar to the guy that, like, all of a sudden he thinks that, oh, I'm a high value man. I actually have multiple women, not after he already agreed to be in a committed relationship, a monogamous relationship. I hate those guys. Those guys irritate me because it's like, wait a minute. One, where do you get off you determined that you're a high value guy?
Mhm.
Where did that happen? Like you just woke up one morning like, you know what, I think I'm a high value guy.
Who determines it, and
Yeah,
by what standards? Maybe by society standards and the internet's red pill standards, he is a high value man now.
but who determines that? People determine that. How people
Yeah.
treat you determine your value to the
Okay,
world.
so maybe people
right? To the world.
people started treating him with a lot of respect and value. So
But that
he
doesn't
now
necessarily
considers
mean you
himself high
could go
value.
back on your agreement. You don't get to change the relationship dynamics that you agreed to begin with, just because all of a
How
sudden
often
people
does
are
that
noticing
happen?
you. Hmm?
Very often.
Well,
Very
I
often.
see more so what I see is guys like this that want that specific dynamic. More so what I see are guys starting out the relationship that way. Now then if they try to change that dynamic somewhere down the road in that relationship, that does happen, but again, like everything else, it's typically not going to work out. I agree. I don't think that that's really that much of an issue though.
No, I completely disagree. Because generally, weak men are picking the path of least resistance, which would be, I'll let you do whatever the fuck you want. And then once they've locked that down, then they want to start setting the boundaries. So I completely disagree with what you're saying.
They're
So-
using game instead of their frame. They're trying to game the women,
Yes.
and then when it comes down to it, months into the relationship, years into the relationship, and that game falls apart because you can't keep it up forever.
Well,
And
no,
now you're
I
just
don't
left
think
with your
game
own
would
frame.
last for years. I would
Well,
disagree with you on that one.
I mean,
Months,
there's-
No,
maybe.
game doesn't last that long because you get to a point where
Yeah, you know a person. Yeah.
you're going to reveal your true self if it's not already you. And
Months I could see, but years I'm gonna call bullshit.
Well,
on that.
whatever, however long it is, but once it comes out, your actual frame, who you are, like you're saying, at that point, there's an incongruency, and now there's a problem. There's a problem for both parties.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that one. I don't see that a shit ton, but I digress.
I just think that when we come to this space, like if the red pill is supposed to be just absolute truth, and that's what it's supposed to be about intersexual dynamics and behavior of men and women, then it should just stay that way. Giving any advice, if they say that they don't give advice, but they do give advice, right? But then go out of their way not to give advice for the other side of things, like marriage or relationships or how to preserve families. Then it's like, okay, then your motive is not to improve families. Your motive is not to improve relationships. Your motive is to, benefit or capitalize off of, the promiscuity that is being ran rampant now in today's day and age.
I agree wholeheartedly with that.
And it's like I personally think, and like I wrote in the blog, that at some point that the red pill will probably split, and you're going to have the guys that are committed to, they're going to take the information that the red pill offers, right, and apply it to how do we fix things to make things better. How do we fix things to make relationships better? How do we take this information and use this information to betterment our society, our culture, our family?
How many people do you see doing that?
I think it's a small group of guys. I don't
mainstream red
necessarily
pill content. Yeah.
I don't think it's a big group of guys, but I think there will be
three of
enough
us.
guys. There's three. But I think there will be a group of guys that are going to do that because they don't want the debauchery. They don't want the the hose and everything. Like my issue is like when we see these shows, then they prop up these OnlyFans models or these former porn stars or these these type of women, and you constantly showcase that. That's all you bring up, and you don't bring
Obviously,
a contrast
right.
up there. You don't bring the opposite.
And you yourself are
women.
dating those women behind the scenes.
Who?
Can I just take a quick
In general.
pause
Yeah.
real quick, because we have somebody backstage and they are not cammed up, so I just want to be able to put a banner up real quick and allow them on and do a voice confirmation that it truly... Oh, wait, it says now you're not connected, Paul. Uh-oh. Oh, there you are. Paul Johnson, is that you? Paul, if you could just voice confirm.
Sounds like a fake name.
Paul.
I've got
No,
Paul
Paul.
Johnson.
Paul Bag.
All right, I'll just go ahead and remove you, and if you want to try again, we can try again in a few minutes or something. Maybe he's having issues. Sorry about that. Continue on. My apologies.
No, I just think that the small group of people are going to fracture off of this the mainline red pill content and want to apply the information that they have for the betterment.
And what information is that? That's
The
kind of
truth.
always
The
right.
truth.
I feel that I get the sentiment, but genuinely, what is that information? So, gentlemen, if you'll entertain me, experience with women. How does that fall into your red pill ideology?
Well, I mean, there's some truths that we have been taught, over time, that like men and women are equal. The blank slate theory, right? That is something that has been taught that men could do, or women could do anything that men could do. Men could do anything that women can do, or women are not or better than men in this area.
Right, so that's equality, but experience with women,
which doesn't exist.
So that we're not equal, but we're equal in value, but different in function and purpose, right?
Okay.
So I think that right there is a good foundation to build off of and address, because men, I think men are better off leading the home. I don't
so
think
experience with women in relationships.
It's not
sexually.
experience with.
No, but that was my question. You went off on your own thing, respectively.
But I'm saying that you start from that. You start from the understanding that the blank slate theory that you've been taught has been a lie. It's not true. And then
I don't think anyone on this panel believes that, but I feel you.
But I'm just explaining it to everybody else that, you start from there. That's the foundation. That's where we've been taught for the longest time. From there, you build off of that and you challenge these things. Okay. Like I tell everybody, challenge everything that you hear. Don't take anything that you hear like for face value.
Okay, so again, experience with women. How do you feel like that red pill talking points as far as experience with women, and then applying that to your life for the truth?
Well, one, like
how does that translate?
You look at we'll use hypergamy for instance. Everybody argues over hypergamy.
There we go.
Right?
Let's go.
Hypergamy. I think hypergamy is just female human nature, right? I think men lusting after women is just male human nature. Right, men want to get their dick wet, and men might like to look at and are attracted to a lot of women. It being unchecked, it not being utilized. Like I don't think that it's sinful for a husband to desire to sleep with his wife and find his wife gorgeous and attractive and just like want to devour her. I don't think that's wrong. I think in that sense that lustfulness
I would
is a
promote
good thing.
that more than anything, honestly.
Yeah.
And I also don't think hypergamy is bad for a woman to use to vet men out, right? I think where it goes bad is when like, okay, she marries this guy, she's done with this guy and she jumps to the next guy, like how that's being taught. I think that is incorrect. I think that's abuse of hypergamy. So
to piggyback off of that, it's relevant. How do you feel then about, now then we're not talking about starting the relationship out one way and then ending another way or whatever, but how do you feel about the high value man then saying that, I want multiple wives or multiple women, but you cannot have multiple men?
You're conflating red pill talking points with what we're talking about, which is red pill
No, I'm
truth.
asking specific questions. And some people, a lot of people actually, that believe or follow red pill ideology do in fact believe and follow this as well. And Glenn himself earlier when we were talking said that you cannot do this in the midst of a relationship once you've made a commitment from the beginning, which I agree. But I'm asking, how does he feel about it from the beginning?
But Glenn was also kind of shooting down the fresh and fit talking points as well. And those are the ones who typically are kind of ranting that. So just to clarify on that note that he was like pushing that one down.
I'm asking his feelings though. Yeah.
So I think that regardless, I don't care what anybody's relationship is like, as long as both parties are like in agreement or they both desire it, right? So if both parties are okay with it, that's between you guys, right? That's your relationship. Personally, I think monogamy is the way to go. I think for a guy to say that he wants to have multiple women, multiple wives, whatever, I don't see that being very beneficial in the long run. It might be good for him. He might think it's good for him, but I don't see how that's beneficial to the family unit as a whole. I don't see how that is good for either wives or either women and wives. So I would say the same thing about women. So if a woman wanted to have multiple men, to me, it's just then you don't want to have me. I'm not enough
Right.
in your life.
Yeah, no,
And
I'd agree. Yeah.
so,
Mhm. Yeah.
so like I don't see that it is beneficial or good for society at all. Now, for the individuals, now if they both are okay with it, and that's what
Right. Yeah.
then
What's
to
in the
each their
bedroom
own.
stays in the bedroom. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel you on that one.
To each their
I mean,
own.
as an ideology, like as a belief. Yeah.
All right, bear with me for just one moment. We're going to try and get Paul on one more time. Paul, is that you, darling?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me
All
now?
right, good. I'm glad you're here.
All right.
Go ahead, Glenn.
No, I just don't agree with like the whole, as a high value man, I could have a rotation with a bunch of women. I sure you may be able to have access to it, but does that mean you necessarily have to act on it? Do you have?
Right.
All things are doable, but are all things good? And I like to take the information that's provided in the red pill space and apply it to be like, okay, what is good and what is useful for my world?
Yeah. So you would define the red pill, I think, like just as a set of what you believe to be truths, just bare bones, the truth, I guess.
Well,
Descriptors.
yeah, they're good descriptors. They're good descriptors.
What are some
for the-
descriptors? Like
Well,
I
like
can
the-
never nail down this like definition of the red pill, right?
Well, okay, so like the descriptors are, we know that 70% of divorces are initiated by women. That's a descriptor.
I think it's 80%, and
sorry.
there's issues with that, but yeah.
80%, whatever the percentage is, that the majority of the divorces are initiated by women. All right. We don't. We
You
know
would
that
take that as a red pill descriptor?
I would say that from a worldview that was not taught that in the beginning, yeah,
Well,
that's
we're
a
talking
red
about the
pill movement.
United States of America, where that statistic is
Well,
applicable.
okay,
but-
let's say I'll tell you this: like 10 years ago, I would not have had that understanding. I wouldn't be aware of that. All right. To me, I thought like men were always the bad guys, and they always leave their women and leave their women high and dry with the kids, and that was what I thought it was like.
Okay.
Right,
So
so-
we're cooking now. We're getting somewhere.
So from the enlightenment, seeing this revelation that the things that you were taught, the lifestyle, the things that you were led to believe are not true. And then you
More
now see-
descriptors, though. So the
Yes.
80% of women filing for divorce. What else? What's another red pill
You
descriptor?
got hypergamy. That's a descriptor. Women's, mating
alright.
strategy. That's a descriptor,
Mhm.
right? So these descriptors.
Another one. That's two. So we've got
uh,
hypergamy. 80%
hypergamy,
of divorce initiated by women.
You got
The women tend to like dark triad traits.
Oh, that's
in
true.
men.
Yeah, you got like the dark triad
Okay,
traits.
so
that
women
can
like
be
the bad
attractive.
boys.
Yeah. That's a descriptor. That guys that are like the safe guys, the guys that tend to
Nice guys finish
Capitalize women.
last kind of
What?
idea.
Well, it's the dual mating strategy is what he's alluding to.
Yeah.
Alright,
These
where,
guys are
explain
weak
that.
guys.
where women will seek short-term flings and fun and really pursue relationships with the bad boys, dark triad types in their early years when their fertility is highest and their choice is the most. And then once they get closer to the point where they're trying to settle down and actually have children, they will end up basically being with people that they may not be deeply attracted
that
to.
kind of contradicts itself, Paul. You said in the early years when their fertility is the highest, it seems that like by your own description of why, that would be her doing this for mating purposes. So when she's ready to settle
Dual.
down and quote unquote have children, your words, not mine, why would she then go with the guy?
Because she's in desperation mode, getting towards the end of a fertility
okay.
window.
Oh,
I
got
think-
you. All right.
I
yeah.
think just like when
So when she actually chooses to reproduce, though, the red pill shit goes out the window.
No. It stays because that's what ends up happening after that is generally the women that did that in the past.
Now
They were
it's just
shooting
like, oh
out
God,
of their
I need to my eggs are frying. Like I gotta fertilize.
and
them
then they'll end
now.
up choosing the safe guy but not be truly attracted to
I don't
him.
even think
There
it's
you go.
necessarily it's
All
like,
right, yeah.
oh, my eggs are frying that I need to choose this guy. I think it's
Oh,
that
I
you know
don't.
what
I don't either, Glenn. I don't.
I think
either.
it could be
do we
like, you
really
know what?
think that?
I
Do we
think
really
it
think
could be
that
like the guys
settling's
that
like
she
the
was
worst
attracted
thing?
to.
Like, is settling the worst thing, especially when it's for reproductive purposes, or or I'm getting older now, it's time to settle down, I've done everything I wanted to do, you get along with me fine enough, like you'll do, let's I'll
Yeah,
also,
but
like, Sarah,
that's
do you
why
re-
divorce
Sarah,
is
do you
only.
real quick, Sarah, do you remember when we had the conversation about hypergamy, me, you, and Michelle on my stream, like probably a year, maybe a year and a half ago? Remember that? And everybody was like, "Oh no, hypergamy is not real." And I was like, "Okay, who did you choose to have kids with?" And then we went down that rabbit hole, and it was like, "Holy shit, I
I
chose."
think hypergamy gets a bad rap. Like
Yeah,
I think
It's
I think women. I think guys should embrace hypergamy.
It just is. It just is.
well,
Well,
it's
It's
the way
good
that
or
women are
bad.
designed.
I would say that a woman choosing most of the time. Now, there's always going to be outliers, right? Obviously, we're not talking about that. We're talking about a majority of the time, and this is reminiscent of our conversation, Sarah, that I was just referencing. But I think that a majority of the time, a woman chooses to reproduce. A majority of the time, especially a smart woman, a well-rounded woman, a woman that like
A what?
has a smart, well-rounded woman who is looking out for the future of herself and her offspring. They're going to choose to reproduce with somebody that's going to, I don't know, offer the
just making
best chance.
noise.
Yeah, that's.
Hot mic.
Somebody doing dishes or frying something?
Oh shit, it might be me.
Okay.
There we go.
Thank you, Leroy. Appreciate it.
But yeah, usually she's going to choose to reproduce with somebody that's going to give her offspring the best chance, right?
Mhm.
Not only genetically, but also like a
Financially,
provider, right? Like,
security, safety.
yeah,
sounds
are
very
you a
logical.
responsible man? Are you a provider? Those are indicators of being somebody that's going to be responsible and provide for his offspring.
And I
So,
don't even think
I
she's
debunked
looking for the
whole thing
hottest.
Paul Johnson said.
I don't even think
No,
she's
but
looking
then-
for the hottest man at that point. I think it's more the
No.
logical, like the thing that men say that we don't have. We're actually being logical in that moment, and we're finding the best match for us for reproducing or for marriage or for, the long term.
And I'd
But
go
then
one
later
step
you
further.
guys
don't
I'd
end up
I'd go
truly
one step
desiring.
further, if I may, real quick. I'll land my plane. I promise. I'd go one step further, Sarah, and say that that just like a lot of these, not guys here on this panel, I'm speaking the understood pronoun you or thee or
Mhm.
they, right? I would say that a lot of these red pill talking points where it's like, oh, well, a man needs to get his experience with women. He needs to definitely get some dating out of the way, get some, notches on his belt, so to speak, so that he has experience and so that.
See, I disagree with all that.
Yeah.
Hold on, the
I'm
plane
still
hasn't landed
talking.
yet.
Yeah. And so,
We're waiting.
anyways, whenever like a guy says that, and then he's like, then I'll know what kind to settle down with. It sounds like the exact same description for women. Like you
Yeah.
guys are literally
kind of-
saying the
you have
same
to-
damn thing.
I'm
You
not
have to
saying that.
experience the bad to be able to appreciate the good, right?
I don't
And
think
like,
you need
Again,
to have sex with women to know what
real
kind of
quick,
women they are.
Understand what an understood pronoun is, Paul. But yes.
Yeah, see, I don't think you need to have like sleep with a bunch of women to understand how women behave.
no, I
Right.
agree with that.
I agree.
I don't think anybody's saying
I mean,
that.
I have a
think
friend that
it's
is
getting out there and dating, though.
I have a friend that is 30 years old. He's a Christian guy. He runs a podcast called Iron Disciples, and he's a virgin. And he's, and I talk about it as often as I can because I'm like, man, I wish I was that age. I wish when I was in my 30s, I could have said the same thing.
No,
Mhm.
I
But-
disagree with that entirely.
You're not a man. It doesn't
You're
matter.
not- the fact is that he's holding on to his convictions and his belief system, and he's not swaying from his, belief and his relationship with Christ.
What do you think his odds are now, though, of losing that virginity or finding like a decent match being a 30-year-old virgin?
Well, I
Fine.
don't think it matters
Has
to
nothing
any
to do
of
with
us.
that.
though.
It-
I don't think it matters